Monkey D. Luffy is the most popular character in One Piece, and for very good reason. He's overflowing with personality, a badass, and layered with thematic and symbolic depth. You simply can't have a series running 20 years long and be this popular without an amazing main character. Luffy is optimistic, headstrong, and obstinate-natured. Those characteristics are what I consider to be Luffy's greatest strengths and his worst weaknesses. Luffy is instantly able to befriend just about everyone he encounters, but on the contrary, he has a tendency to make rash decisions that are outright ridiculous. He isn't afraid to declare war against the world government if it means he can get his crew member back. He doesn't care if he's in conflict with 2 emperors, that being 2 of the top 4 strongest pirates in the world. He's gonna do what he wants, as crazy as it may be, and he doesn't care what you think. When Luffy sets his mind on something, he will stick to it until the very end. He's almost like an animal who behaves purely on instinct. Luffy stands behind the idea that if you don't take risks, you can't create a future. And let me tell you, Luffy is a risk taker. He manifests that primal urge deep within all of us that tells us to do what we want to do despite what people say. He is the embodiment of freedom, a creature with no feasible limits. It's been documented that Roger was the same type of guy, which leads me to my next point. A lot of people in the One Piece community have a problem with Luffy being too much like Roger. This is very justifiable criticism. It gives off the impression that this isn't Luffy's personal journey, and that he's just carrying out the will of someone else. It's the typical, oh, you're just like that really popular, awesome guy that you've never met before sort of cliche. It's in basically every shonen anime, so you can't really blame One Piece for following suit. But I do understand that for some people, the appeal to Luffy was the fact that he was just not linked to anyone else and he was just his own person, he was living his own journey, and that's completely understandable. Luffy and Roger share a childlike fascination for the world around them, a guideless sense of adventure. He wants to be Pirate King because he believes that that's the man with the most freedom in the entire world. He has a lot of childlike characteristics. He's essentially a child in a man's body. It's no coincidence that Luffy's birthday is on Japanese Children's Day. He believes that it isn't the destination that's important, but rather it's the bonds we create and the lessons we learn throughout the journey that's really important. A certain character from Hunter x Hunter said it best. You should enjoy the little detours to the fullest, because that's where you'll find the things that are more important than what you want. Luffy embodies that quote to a T. So much of the fun for Luffy is the journey he embarks on, and not as much the destination he's approaching. He doesn't care about the treasure. He doesn't even care if there is a treasure. He cares about the journey. Those are the messages he conveys throughout the story. Those are the traits only fit for someone who's going to be king of the pirates. Which is why the parallels between him and Roger are not only justifiable, but almost necessary as it pertains to the narrative. As simple and straightforward as Luffy seems, he isn't completely black and white. Luffy is selfish. He doesn't care if he's helping bust out 1,000 criminals from the most dangerous prison in fiction. Are you gonna help me get my brother back? Sweet. Yeah, come out. Come along with me. You're a criminal with a bounty over 100 million berries? I don't care. If you are in any way beneficial to me, come along. I really don't care about the well-being of everyone else. Such heartless morality prevents Luffy from being a hero. He does whatever he feels is beneficial for him at that moment, not what is objectively right. Heroes do what's right, Luffy does what he wants. If what he does is right, then he's a hero. If what he does is wrong, then he's a villain. This point is further emphasized by Luffy's quote here.
Hero? Yada! Nani o? Ore tachi wa kaizoku da zo! Hero wa daisuki da kedo, naru no wa iya da! お前、ヒーローってなんだか分かってんのか？例えば、肉があるだろ？海賊は肉で宴をやるけど、ヒーローは肉を人に分け与えるやつのことだ。俺は肉を食いてえ！
Luffy never kills his enemies. However, Oda explains that this isn't a question of morality so much as a matter of punishing his villains for their crimes. He feels that killing the villains lets them off too lightly. He considers letting them live to see their dreams be ruined a far more fitting punishment. That's messed up every way you can look at it. Luffy is unwaveringly loyal to those close to him. He isn't afraid to spurn established authority or tradition if it means he can get his friends back. He will stay by your side till the bitter end. Luffy is a creature fueled by raw determination, a one-track mind. He will do whatever it takes and stop at nothing. Impel Down highlights this trait of his. He went as far as to choose saving his brother, or at least giving himself a chance to save his brother, over his very life. Luffy was going to die on multiple occasions throughout his journey just to give himself a chance at getting his brother back. Luffy knew that his physical contribution to the war would be so minuscule, yet he still pushed on just to give himself that 1 extra % chance of getting his brother back. He isn't concerned about the repercussions of his careless actions, or even the long-term impact they entail. Luffy is pretty battle smart, but that doesn't mean his childlike demeanor isn't exemplified through his battles. All of Luffy's fights are ultimately boiled down to if he can punch harder than his opponent. Very simple. Luffy often physically changes his body when he transforms thanks to his unique devil fruit. This, in a way, symbolizes Luffy's unlimited potential. Luffy will continue to find new ways to use his devil fruit and help him overcome whatever opposition dares to come his way. He's very flexible. Literally, very flexible. Okay, bad joke. He can mold himself into whatever is necessary to win the battle. Like a child and his Lego, Luffy is only as strong as his creativity takes him. Luffy doesn't play favorites. He cares for each member of his crew equally and keeps their goals in mind at all times. He doesn't really boss his crew around either. Being a man of freedom himself, he believes that his crew should have a lot of freedom as well. It's never been explicitly stated, but Zoro is widely regarded as the second in command. Luffy and Zoro are the only members whose jobs specifically require them to be powerful. Luffy being the captain and Zoro being the swordsman. This also plays into their goals. Luffy wants to become Pirate King, while Zoro wants to become the strongest swordsman. Because of this, Zoro is widely regarded as the second strongest member on the crew. Because of this, Zoro and Luffy share a sort of mutual respect. Zoro is often the one that keeps Luffy in check when he gets out of hand. Zoro calls Luffy out for his impulsive behavior on multiple occasions. He's sort of a reality check for Luffy. Zoro reassures Luffy on what a captain should be doing. Luffy wouldn't be the strong, independent captain he is right now if it weren't for Zoro keeping him in check. Luffy will often act before he thinks, and then Zoro will think before he acts. He reminds Luffy that he needs to take things seriously. There was a moment in Punk Hazard where Luffy almost died against someone who has no business beating Luffy. Zoro is very upset at this and goes to talk some sense into him. Luffy helps inspire his crew to also follow their dreams. Zoro was laughed at for wanting to be the strongest swordsman, but when he looks at Luffy and he sees how nobody cares of his dream to become Pirate King, a far more challenging, prestigious, and elusive title, he's inspired. When he loses to Mihawk, he recognizes he's weak. Very weak. He's then inspired to become stronger and reach his goal thanks to his captain. Luffy saves Nami from a life full of pain. After she collected the 100 million berry bounty that Arlong asked for, Arlong essentially gave Nami the big middle finger and said, "I don't care, you're still gonna be my slave." Nami had been working tirelessly, slaving herself away in hopes of attaining freedom once again. And then this is the response she gets. Emotions out of control, Nami begins to stab herself, cursing Arlong's name. Luffy grabs the knife from Nami, and then puts his hat on Nami's head. And then him and the rest of his crew walk over to Arlong, and they kick his ass. Because of this moment, Nami sort of envisions Luffy as somewhat of a savior. He wasn't afraid to stand up against the opposition. You made my navigator cry, and that's enough for me to want to beat you up. Looking at it from Nami's perspective, why wouldn't you want to join this guy's crew? To this day, this is still one of my favorite moments in all of One Piece. There are obviously other characters in this series and other moments I could bring up, but I feel like the two I mentioned here more or less encapsulate why the Straw Hats choose to follow Luffy and what makes him so charismatic. Mihawk makes note of Luffy's most dangerous trait, his charisma. Anyone who meets him wants to follow him and become his ally. Not only is this the trait of a child, it's the trait of a king, the future Pirate King. Similar to the Roger situation, there's been a lot of criticism in regards to Luffy's characterization after the time skip. It was obvious that Luffy had matured, but it seemed like he still hadn't learned his lesson from Marineford. Luffy nearly killed himself up to the point where he had to drug himself on multiple occasions just so he could keep walking. When he miraculously makes it to Marineford, he holds his giant Gear 3rd middle finger at the entire Marine fleet, again all in hopes of getting his brother back. He fails, and when we see him after, he's filled with nothing but devastation. Jinbei snaps Luffy out of it and reminds him that Luffy still has his crew. This is where we see Luffy mature a little bit and train with Rayleigh. 2 years later, we can tell he's a little bit grown up. So, what's the problem? The problem is I lied. Kind of. Luffy didn't really mature or learn from his mistakes. He just learned that he needs to become a lot stronger to protect the ones he loves. Not that he needs to tone down on the recklessness. Going back to my original statement, Luffy's optimistic, headstrong, and obstinate nature is his greatest strength and his worst weakness. He will either benefit from his recklessness or pay the price. I'm very interested to see how he develops and how the series moves on from here. I know there's a lot of other shonen main characters that are quite similar to Luffy, but I believe Oda definitely executes this stereotype the best among all the others within its genre, which is one of the many reasons One Piece stands head and shoulders above its contemporaries. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've had that Straw Hat Jolly Roger logo at the bottom of my videos for as long as I remember, but if you look at my entire channel, you'll realize that I've never uploaded a video focused on One Piece. I've mentioned it here and there in other anime videos I've made, and even one of my Pokemon videos from way back, but to my surprise, I've never made a video focusing on it. This was actually brought to my attention when I was talking to Nux Taku on Discord. He asked me why I had it there despite not making a One Piece video, and I was just completely shook. I honestly love this series, and I have no idea what took me so long to finally talk about it. Now before we end this video, I want to play a little game with you guys. It's a variation of the game Smash or Pass. You guys have all played it before, right? Only this version is called Smash and Pass. Smash that like and subscribe button, and pass this video on to your friends. Have a good one. Ikalgo is one of the most overlooked characters in Hunter x Hunter. It's through him we see just how much Killua has developed into his own person, refusing to abide in the confines of his family's strict rule. In the beginning of the series, there is no way Killua would have shown mercy to someone like Ikalgo. Killua was more